more, we want to bring in CBS News correspondent Skyler Henry, who is at the Carter Center in Atlanta as we speak here. Skyler, the Carter Center, obviously such a huge part of Jimmy Carter's legacy. Can you talk about the organization and the work that he led?
Hey, Natalie, good evening to you. Well, this Carter Center is simply the touchstone, the milestone, if you will, for President Carter in his post-presidency world. It is the beacon, if you will, for health and peace, at the work that those here have been able to do all across the globe, whether it's eradicating worm disease in Guinea or spreading messages of peace in all sorts of countries throughout Africa and Eastern Europe and even Haiti. And I think that that is something that the president will ultimately be remembered for fondly and greatly. Just the work that he has been able to do following his time at the White House. He was renowned for his humanitarian work, also the work that he and his late wife Rosalind were able to accomplish on all platforms, all across the globe, the messages that they spread, the work that they were able to do. And really, that was something that so many people gravitated to in the years following his time in the White House, so much so that when Carter's wife Rosalind passed last year, that was something that simply kept popping up with people that we spoke with. They said they were just so they admired what the Carters stood for. When we went down to Plains, same thing. They said the thing that Plains was known for was peanuts and the Carters, and just the amount of work that they have been able to do all across the world, all across the country for that matter, that relates to their philanthropic work, whether it's Habitat for Humanity or other areas where they decided to sort of reach out and try to help as many people as possible. I think a lot of people recognize that. Even people who have already shown up here to the Carter Center to pay their respects. We heard from one woman who wasn't even from here, happened to be in Atlanta with her significant other, and actually said that she wanted to stop here to pay her respects because Jimmy Carter was one of her favorite people, let alone favorite presidents. And I think that that is something that the former president will go down in history for, just being so much of a beacon of hope, a beacon of light. Peace and philanthropic work. I think it is an understatement to talk about the work that he has been able to do during his 100 years of life.
And Skyler, we always hear Jimmy Carter always stayed very connected to his Georgia roots, to home. Can you talk more about how he's being remembered in the state? I know you just gave some personal anecdotes of people coming by there.
Yeah. Sure. Well, let's start with government. We've received statements from Senators Raphael Warnock, who sent a statement out saying that President Carter was one of his heroes. His leadership was driven by love, his life's project grounded in compassion and commitment to human dignity. And we've been seeing statements like that from officials all across the state here, whether they senators, Governor Brian Kemp, or other members of Congress. And also, I mean, this is someone who is rooted in Georgia. I talked about Plains. That's where the Carters were. They didn't move to Atlanta. They didn't move to Washington, D.C. or New York City. They stayed right there in Plains. So much so that just about everyone you talked to when you were down there had a particular anecdote or story about what the Carters meant to them, whether it's their Sunday school service that he would lead or the work that they would do throughout the community down there. And I think that that is something that sort of speaks to who President Carter was. And so now it'll be interesting to see sort of how he will continue to be remembered. We know with the late wife, Rosalind, the funerals, procession and ceremonies that took place both here in Atlanta and also down in Plains. And we expect for President Carter's memorial to be similar to that.
Skyler Henry, thank you so much from outside the Carter Center there.